CEO of Pinhero Construction.
Mister.
Mr. CEO coming live from SoCal. Okay. All right, man. Well, I think we're good to get started. You got any questions? I mean, it's going to be easy. So, are you okay? I mean, are you okay if I kind of start with your journey? I typically don't start with people's journey, but I think yours is interesting just from knowing you and then like your bio and stuff. Like, can you hear me?
Yeah, you cut out for a second there, so I only got the last part of that.
I was saying, are you good with me starting with that journey since the recession? Or
yeah, let's do it.
Okay. All right, man. So welcome to the AT Construction Podcast, and we have Mr. Sunny Pinhero with us. Welcome, Sunny.
How's it going, Brad?
Good. So,
appreciate you having me on.
I'm excited to have you on. Sunny's Mr. CEO of Pinhero Construction back in California, all the stomping grounds. And truth be told, we've known each other through social media for a while, but especially Clubhouse. I mean, and you were just saying before it came live on air that those memories are coming up, and it was 2 years ago that we were both like incredibly active on that platform.
Yeah, it was like a weird time. It's almost like we had too much time on our hands, and like everyone just wanted to chat and talk to each other, and people were cooped up, and so you had these like this huge amount of people that were on this platform chatting, and don't get me wrong, I actually kind of like the platform and how you can get on and chat for a while and do it with people. I actually think it would be a good way to do like some podcasts and stuff, sort of do it live with an audience. Yeah. But it's hard to schedule, to have 30 or 40 people in some of our rooms, like with you in it and Brian and a couple other people. We had a couple hundred people in some of those rooms some nights, and I don't know if you can recreate that nowadays. That almost everything's back to normal.
I know it's hard. I think a lot of people have more time with COVID, and to your point with Clubhouse, I always thought about, and you and I spoke offline about this, like how do we kind of not capitalize, but how do we build momentum off of this and utilize this for the industry, bringing it up. And because we had great discussions, I loved it. It was, but it seems hard now with as busy as everyone is. And it's not just being busy, but the one disadvantage of recording the podcast like we are now, Sunny, it's you and I were engaged, but we don't have like live listeners saying, okay, Sunny, well, what about this, live in the moment, but we may have to build on that in the future.
I'm still looking at trying to do the Construction Pros podcast, and it's just something where we're interviewing other contractors and stuff. And it would be cool to kind of do a 30-minute like talking and then get some people actively involved, asking some questions and be able to record it. I just I don't know what the nuances are of, legally be able to put that out there and, post it and record off of Clubhouse. So
yeah, I prefer not to give any legal advice as I don't have much. So I'll stay away from that aspect. But, the reason I want to bring you on, Sunny, so I mean, anytime you held those discussions on Clubhouse, you did a phenomenal job moderating, great job speaking, and you just had so much amazing content. And I've loved following you and just learning from you, especially over the last few years. And your story's pretty unique. I know you, like most of us, coming from the Southwest and those warm climates back in the recession, were hit pretty hard. And what did that look like for you? Having to start over after the crash of 2008.
Dude, it was brutal. I was pretty young at the time. So
you're young now. That's why I'm like, what do you start your business when you're 11?
I got grays.
You're 11.
I lost all my hair. You still got good hair, man. Yeah. Come on. No, I just turned 43, so I guess I'm still young, but I feel like I'm starting to get to the age where there's actually some younger people on job sites and subs that we're working with, but no, it was brutal. I mean, I started my first company at 25, and going through the recession, I had no idea it was going to happen. And the type of work that I was doing, we were building restaurants, retail spaces, things like that. So businesses stopped.
So, well, if I cut you off real quick, so at 25, you're already general contractor doing restaurants, doing TIs, businesses. And I would imagine that, especially at that time, I mean, having not gone through recession, I mean, you're young, like many of us, you're thinking, hey, everything's green. I'm hiring. I'm getting contracts, like, let's go, right? And then bam.
I had licenses from Arizona to Alaska, California to Colorado, and we were, I had guys that were probably all my age or younger with us, a lot of friends, a lot of other dudes, and yeah, we were just living life, and we had dirt bikes in our work trucks, and we'd pull boats behind us, so we'd go, to the lake after the jobs, and it was a good time for sure, but yeah, like, part of what my success now is that I am playing the long game now. and you, just like in the stock market, right? So you put money in and it takes a long time for it to start kicking in. But once that compound interest starts happening, your returns just sort of like skyrocket. And so, not to like jump too far forward, but I didn't do that originally. I just spent the money. I was just, making some good money, spending it on toys and trucks and hiring employees, and not saving and not investing in like my board of directors or my business advisors. I didn't have an attorney or a CPA or anything at that time, and so.
But what does that mean when this is really interesting to me, if I cut you off, Sunny, is because when you say I'm playing the long game, just like in the stock market, 401k, we understand that, as that builds, it goes. What does that mean in relation to building, right? And to building a company, building systems. When you say you're not, just trying to be quick and go get it, like in 2008, how has that changed, just mentally or direction or what you're doing now?
Well, the kind of the way I explain it is within construction, it's natural to like move up the ranks fairly quickly. You're laborer, you're apprentice, you're journeyman, then you become like a master electrician or a master carpenter, and then sort of the next project, unless you're working for a larger company, then the next step for you is kind of like small business ownership. And you can kind of get that raise and you make quite a bit of money doing that. But then you can kind of become business poor, because then you go out and buy the big house, the toys, you got, all these things you're paying for. And then I call it business poor. And so that was what that picture looked like. Was I had employees, I had the nice lifted truck, all that sort of stuff at that time. And I didn't have any savings. I didn't have any investment capital. I didn't have the type of employees I needed. And so kind of fast forwarding to what I call like reinvesting in my company now is, I paid myself a lot less initially. I didn't take on any debt. We did things very smart. And so every chance I got, I would reinvest in the company by adding skill sets and people to the company, because it's all based on production. If we're going to grow as a company, if we want to make more money, we have to produce more. And so I saved, instead of spending money on myself, which I could have paid myself more initially, is I paid myself less for the first 3 or 4 years, a lot less than I could have. But because I did that, I was able to bring on a team. I was able to bring on, business development and sales and marketing. And then now we got to the point, instead of doing $2 or $3 million a year, paying myself really well, but not having the growth and not having a team and being, a slave to sort of the business. I've built that team. I've invested in these different parts of the business. And so now, I don't necessarily, it's not necessarily like bragging, but we have a very smooth operation, and what we're producing now is a lot easier than if we hadn't invested in all those things over the time. So I kind of call it compounding investment in your business.
But really the point you made there that's really interesting, Sunny, is you said, I'm not consumed by the business, right? And there's that offset, and I've spoken to a lot of guests about this, that, oftentimes you hear this word success, right? What does that mean? Well, to everyone it means something different, but really as you speak about lifestyle like you are now, Sunny, I mean, yeah, you may not be as high on the hog of buying every latest, greatest toy or like paying yourself this huge income, but by investing in people, who just a couple weeks ago I had Zach Detmore, and he's like, if someone could do 60% of your capability, it should be delegated, right? And, so for you to like train and get systems, is there's this peace of mind. It's not that you don't have issues like we all do right now, or supply chain or challenges, but the reality is you're at a point in your business where the growth is slower because it's more conservative. You're investing in your people and your systems and your protocol, which now I would imagine gives you a little bit more free time. Possibly. I know you're engaged with your family, extracurricular. And so there's this balance that may be a lot healthier, even though the bottom line could be different if you were to approach it maybe a different way.
Yeah, it's hard to explain because, we're entrepreneurs. You're a business owner. I am. We have drives. We have a drive and a motor that's probably a little bit more aggressive than most people, even with our own employees and stuff. And so we're going to end up being workaholics. This is like our sports team. Like, we're not basketball players or baseball players. We're like the 10% at the top of the business, right? And so we put a lot of time into that. But and that's what it was like, pulling all-nighters, working late, all that stuff on projects back in, the early 2000s. But my whole purpose for building Pinhero Construction was to prove that it could be done differently. And, And it doesn't really matter what size company you want to build. If you put the things in place, your team in place, you can build any size company to operate, and you manage the company doesn't manage you. And so I think that is where most business owners need to get to. They need to get to a point where they're not consumed by the business. The business isn't, running their life. This is something that you're managing. I'm lucky enough to not get too many calls on the weekends. During the week, it's very smooth. People are huge. So my biggest thing now is people. It's customers and it's employees. If any business, doesn't matter what you're doing, if you focus on those two things from the start, like that's the key to it all. And it took me probably 17, 18 years to get to that, where like I started really locking into that. And even now I'm not the best when it comes to that, because I used to think I had to do everything. I used to think like I had to take everything on. And, I came to the realization the older I got, or the older I'm getting, that like I can only do so much. I only have so much time. I have to be there for my family, and I have to be there for friends, and I have to be there for doing my hobbies and other things, having other outlets in life. But by putting the business first and investing in it versus, taking the money and spending it at the time when I could have, it's paid huge dividends in our company within the 6 or 7 years we've been operating right now.
So do you feel that lesson learned when you're talking about investing in people, whether it's your clients or employees, and just the mentality that let's take a step back and let's focus on the systems, because I'm looking at lifestyle here. Was this something that was an immediate lesson, just how you're running your business in your early 20s in 2008? Or is this something that you realized in the last couple of years after restarting, after the recession?
Well, I kind of touched on it a minute ago, we have that hustle and grind, that sort of attitude that you have out there, and people kind of get motivated behind it. I don't know when it sort of happened, but it's only been the last couple of years, and I don't know if it's been something that's a maturity level. I don't know if it's just something that kind of came to me, but, it first clicked to me when I heard it the first time. There was a HVAC company in Florida, and I don't remember the name offhand. I just kind of remember the story and the function of the story. They were a service-based business. They're having a hard time hiring employees. And I've always been good at hiring, and I've always been a proponent of hiring employees. So this story kind of caught my attention. And in what the story was about is they were going out and recruiting servers, people that worked as bartenders or servers that were, maybe 30, 35 years old, that were still making good money, but they had really great customer service. They walked fast back and forth. They're not used to taking breaks. They're used to hustling for tips. And they basically created a university or training program within their company. And that's how they built like a $75 million company by doing this. And so, I guess where I'm going is, employees are key to your business. Like I learned pretty quickly, and maybe it's the size of the company. Okay. So I could manage and do a lot up to like the $3 to $6 million mark. But once we got past that, I have to solely depend on employees for projects, for customer service, for sales. And maybe that's sort of the tie there, is like, I realize that the business is bigger than I am. And now I'm just steering the ship and leading, providing the vision. And, companies, if someone's watching this and they want to grow their company, I personally want to get to $100 million. I don't know if you have a vision or goal there. It's not, I use 100 million because it sounds kind of cool.
It's 100 million.
It's kind of, it sounds like, wow, okay, 100 million, right? But it's not about that. What 100 million represents is, if I can get to 100 million in 10 years, that means we're going to be a scalable and sustainable company. And I'm going to be able to attract top talent. I'm going to be able to attract people who are going to be able to take things off my plate. And there's going to be people that I'm going to be able to help with their own dreams and visions, whether it's, cars or houses or retirements or paying for their kids' schooling or whatever that looks like, right, for the employees. And so having my vision big enough to help other people's is part of it. And it's been a real big focus of mine. So, going back, I think it has to do with two things. Is one, I no longer could do everything. And I realized that I was probably the bottleneck in holding things back. And so, it's really all about people. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And so if you're a small business right now, a small trade company, as hard as you market to customers for your bathroom remodels or your plumbing service, you should be doing the same sort of thing with trying to attract employees and potential candidates for your own business.
It's amazing. I mean, you have this unique, uncanny ability, right, to communicate that culture and just the personality, Sunny. And I'll give you credit there, because just hearing you speak about that, hey, even something as simple as I want to get to 100 million, and it's not a status symbol, it's not a wealth symbol. It's more like, it's something I want to achieve. But the reason I want to do that is because now I have great people. And it shows that I built systems, I built company culture, and that they have great lifestyles, whether it be vehicles or houses, or that, they're creating their family, right? Whatever that means to them, or their opportunity, in this world. But going back to that, what's fascinating about the example you gave about the HVAC company is, you think, this is something that I've looked at as one I completely agree with, is the strategy of the mechanical companies you mentioned was, okay, they may not have the field experience to understand the technical side of mechanical, but they get the customer savvy side. They get the hustle. They get the hard work, the customer service, and you can't replicate that. And when people hire so many times, and when I hire, I don't always look at experience where you've been. Now, there's no doubt some of the stuff we do is more complicated, so we have to be careful there. But at the same time, if I can bring on people that communicate, they smile, they fit the brand that's trying to be different in the construction industry, well, we can train them, we put systems in place, and now you're creating this culture of people, and that's the energy. Really, that's what you're portraying here, Sunny, is that if you create that culture and the people come in, now you train them, and then now when you get both, when you get the great customer service, the hardworking people, and then they're savvy in the industry, now it's like, 100 million, here we come.
It's as important as getting the job.
Yeah.
Like is important as you selling a job and selling a house and getting a new customer. It's getting that employee on the back end. You have to have the two. And you got to keep them sort of at the same level as you grow. But it's, you're right. Like you just explained it like perfectly. There's some things that you can't train. You can't train honesty. You can't train attitude. You can't train, those types of things into people. You can coach a little bit, and you can motivate a little bit to swing that pendulum a little bit, and as a leader of our companies, we have to do that to begin with. But I've been a big proponent. There's a lot of people within my company in my office that I brought in from outside the industry, and it's paid dividends. Like right now, I'll look at superintendents who are contractors who are retired. I'll look at women. If I had women applying to our jobs as superintendents and stuff, I look all day long, because I think it's an untapped market within the construction industry. So there's a lot of different areas that I'm trying to find people outside the industry, or at least people who are outside of construction. It's definitely like a little bit of that learning curve that you have to kind of get over, because like you said, some of our stuff is pretty complex, so you want that. But certainly if you hire on the first two items, honesty and attitude, things like that, then you're much better off than hiring someone that is just skilled.
It's funny you say that, because, I think about, for me, I've always tried to be big on, in the construction industry, it's so often that this is how we do things. This I've been taught, this is how you do it, right? And you and I are pretty close in age. We're fairly younger, and so I'm 41 myself. And so you think about, well, we come in where we're like challenging stuff and looking at, different methods and methodologies and, systems and how can we implement this? But what I found is I bring in people from other industries, right? They'll challenge me, and I'm like, well, this is construction. It doesn't really work that way, but I'm like, hold on, like, what's happening here? It's like, no, Brad, I've done this. Other companies are successful. Like, we can do this. And it's like, that's actually really smart. And sometimes we resist things. I don't know why, but as you mentioned, diversity of people, right? Diversity of male, female, diversity of like other industries. I mean, there's so much value that we need in construction to just bring a different approach, right, to our business. And it just helps not only from the construction industry, but also, as you mentioned, running our business.
I think it's huge. Like I follow all the stuff you do. I mean, I think like the houses and projects that you guys are building is freaking awesome. Like the net zero type stuff. Like those are all things that might be going on in the industry, but they're leading edge. They truly are. Even after, as long as some of the stuff's been around, solar's been around for 80 years, but even then it's only gone really popular in the last, 4 or 5 years, right, where it's just like gone out of control. And so there's a lot of technology, like our industry is old school, and there's a certain part of it that always will be. And then there's, the new aspect to it. So I think it's awesome that, I think there needs to be a certain level of I don't know, whatever you want to call it, progressivism or something within your own company. I wouldn't know how to explain it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Evolution.
So, I mean, being willing to like take on some ideas, and they may not like make a huge difference, or maybe they fail, but I'll tell you what, there's nothing that I could say in my company that I ever tried that like ruined us. Like there's nothing across the board. There was nothing that was like major that we tried that set us back so far that we couldn't overcome fairly easily, and we didn't learn something from. And so, after I closed down my first company, I went to work for a couple other contractors, and it's the owners that always get in the way of their own success. And, we're sitting here, we're kind of chatting about, we can probably go on for a long time about all the different stuff we've tried, but that just kind of shows like, hey, we're where we're at because we're open to these things. And that goes back to the employees. You're bringing in people who know stuff that you don't, so it's pretty cool.
So I want to get back to this on the journey here, but what's really important, what I'm still trying to gather in my head is how in the world are you 25 years old running this company, hiring, building restaurants in different states? Like, that acceleration or the courage to be like, life as an entrepreneur is really difficult. We speak about that your highs and lows, it changes every 5 minutes. It's a really tough, your moods change. It affects family. It affects work. I mean, there's just so many things going on. Entrepreneurs. So at a young age, what made you say, I'm ready to start my company? And then bam, what did you do to start getting these contracts? This is before social media. So how are you getting work? How are people saying, this little 20-year-old kid, I don't know if I'm going to trust you, building out my restaurant?
I think one of the things that is my superpower, and I'm actually trying to coach my own employees on this, is that it didn't matter whether it was my own company or if I was an employee somewhere else. I acted like I was the owner. I acted like there was not anyone above me, and not like I acted like the boss, but it was like, hey, I'm here to run things for you. I'm here to manage this project. And so, and maybe it comes into play that, both my parents were business owners or small contractors, growing up, and I kind of got experience in that. It wasn't something that was like talked about. It wasn't talked about business and entrepreneurship and stuff like that when I was a kid. It was just my dad was a drywall contractor and turned into a GC eventually. And my mom did the books and I guess I was just exposed to some of that. And so maybe I had a little bit of a confidence and experience or knowledge level in that. So I was exposed to things probably that I didn't realize were sort of instrumental to me being able to grow and sort of take that step. But I've never really had an issue with like walking into a room and talking about what I know, and selling and I started my construction journey at 21. And so I was, running projects at 21, and I had to deal with 50-year-old plumbers and electricians and guys that have been doing it a long time. So it wasn't, I kind of learned early that you lead by asking and getting buy-in versus like demanding how to do it. And so those are just some of the things, I guess, that kind of stepped in. And part of it is I didn't know any better. I just was doing it,
But I love that you said lead, but you said lead by asking. I think that's something that's really lost, and it doesn't matter if you're a designer, architect, builder. So many times we may feel ashamed or incompetent, or maybe we shouldn't be in charge if we don't know the answer. But why not ask? Like, if we don't know, ask. Like, I tell my employees, just ask. If I'm telling you to do something or you don't understand the terminology, just ask. I'll take more of you than less of you, right? If you're asking. And our trades, I've found that when I've taken that approach, instead of being more of a, let's call it a supervisor or being more demanding, if I'm understanding what makes them tick, what are the challenges with their day to day, coming out performing? How can I have the job site more tidy or clean, or more organized so that they can be effective, asking these questions and understand them, then they know you care, learning their name is a big thing. I mean, I tell all my superintendents to learn the names of everyone on the job site. I mean, from a labor all the way up, because they'll respect you more, when you care. People, when they know you care, they'll actually do a better job,
And I probably didn't do as good of a job as I should at a younger age when I was doing that. I was kind of just, trying to lead as I could. But that's a good example of like today. Like I was out on a job site today meeting with a client, but there's a couple younger electricians that were working. His dad's there and he's one of the younger guys, and they always come by and give me a fist bump. And it wasn't much, but it's like, it's something to them, And so getting their buy-in and talking with them or giving them a hard time about, wearing their Jordans instead of their work boots or something like that, like little things like that, just, whatever it is, And so, it's getting the buy-in is huge. And as a general contractor, and I believe that you guys kind of operate the same way, we sub a lot of our stuff out. So we're solely dependent on the abilities of our subcontractors and their employees out there. And so, we want to promote that work ethic. And so I learned very quickly that I was not going to get anywhere being the boss's son. And, when I started out as 21, trying to tell people what to do.
Yeah.
And now at 43 and actually being the boss, or the CEO, like I know that I'm still leading when I need to. And then, pushing and asking, and almost everything else.
So business-wise, how does it, based on the project scope, I would imagine that, now with the success and name and branding, you're probably doing projects that are a little bit, maybe bigger, more complex, more expensive, but scope of work, I mean, is it similar to the scope of work? I mean, how does the business differ from what you did in 2008 to now?
So like 2008, we were doing 1,500 square foot restaurants, things like Subway sandwich shops, Quiznos. We did some pizza places, some Taco Del Mars. Those are like your small quick service restaurants. Now what we're doing is we're doing like 30,000 square foot food halls with 27 restaurants, wow, a brewery, a bar, things like that inside. Projects that used to be $100,000, then we're doing projects that range from $5 to $8 million. And so like we're doing a project right now that's 40,000 square feet. It's got 6 restaurants in it, has an athletic office. It's for a private college here in Southern California. And so they're certainly challenging. I mean, like growing and taking on those bigger houses, or bigger projects, has always created a little bit level of extra stress that we probably didn't need, but we've been taking it on because it's exciting and it's going to help us with our growth goals.
So let me ask you this, because my concern, and we're a hybrid. I mean, I never did commercial at the scale you are. I mean, we've done I should say a couple of big projects, and we've done, but it's been a few years. And part of my reluctance, for a commercial, especially right now, and especially since COVID, is the supply chain is tough. I mean, in commercial world, there are litigated damages, and there has to be. The reality is you're building out for the college or a restaurant. If they're not open, they're not making money, and they're just spending. And so how do you manage just the risk of the commercial world, especially right now?
So it's challenging because all of our clients in the commercial construction industry, they're paying rent at some point in time.
Paying rent and part of the TI cost, most likely, at least a portion.
Well, and they're paying the TI cost. They're paying for everything, right? Yeah. But my point is that there's a deadline that they then continue to keep paying and paying and paying. It's not like, hey, I have a bathroom remodel and I want to schedule it, in 8 weeks or whatever. And I'm not saying that that's not important or might not have time schedules. It's just the client is fiscally going to have to start paying if you don't get it done by a certain time period, right? And so it's hard. The challenge has always been hard to how much are we planning right now versus starting the project? And I am taking a little bit of your approach. Like I've not forgot this. I actually, within one of the coaching programs that I help with, I told someone about this. I was like, yeah, my buddy Brad Levitt told me, one time that they don't start a project until they have everything planned and procured and everything set up. Let's go. I love that, dude. Like it would help projects so much doing that. And so that's something that's always stuck with me. And and that's basically sort of what we've started implementing over the last like 6 months is if there's a project that has long lead time items, we either find alternates or we procure them super early. I am coaching and explaining and educating my customers as much as possible right now within that commercial construction industry. The challenges you're going to have are the same things like with you. It's going to be trusses. It's going to be equipment or kitchen equipment,
steel,
appliances. It's all that sort of stuff. You can still get plumbing parts and electrical parts and things like that. It depends on, I'm not doing massive projects, but like 30, 40, 50, $100 million projects, we're still in the sort of the TI small commercial ground.
5 to 8 million is not very small commercial though. I mean, that's
well, yeah, that's probably not. But a couple challenges we are having are definitely the trusses, things like that. It's really important to track procurement. And I think it's almost important at any size, though. I think it becomes more important now than it ever has. I think it's just the level of procurement you track. Like, I actually have to help our subcontractors track their procurement. Like, hey, did you order your HVAC units? Are they coming 20 weeks out or 16 weeks out, right? And then some of the other things we're doing is alternates, trying to find solutions. And so there's a little bit of management in there. There's a project right now, downtown San Diego, that we're working on. It's a 3-story building, and there's some items that are long lead time, and they want to get going on it, but we're actually holding off from starting because there's no point in starting now and then having to pull off or slow down on the project. And that's for twofold. One is because it's going to cost us money. And the second of all, it's going to cost the client money if we keep doing it. And I don't need to do work if we're not being productive, and I'd rather be doing productive work when we can be. And so we want that process to be as smooth as possible. So like your advice just on that one little thing, like you don't think much about it, but it's like, I want to put that on a freaking sign in the office and send it to clients. And so like, because we're so pressured to start jobs, right? Like, cause these are business owners that want to like open their sandwich shop, or they want to open their ice cream shop, or they have tenants that they want to bring in. So, when you're driven by money, it's different than I assume it's a little bit different than maybe what you have to deal with, where you're dealing with a lot more emotional things. These are like you're living it's like some of your stuff is artwork. Our stuff right now, even though commercial projects can have artwork type of craftsmanship in their projects, we're still doing just like basic business stuff where people are trying to make money off of, what we're creating. And, there's not much emotion in it as much as there could be if it was at the caliber of craftsmanship maybe that you're doing, or people are living in the projects and stuff like that,
Yeah, but either way, on either side, to your point, I mean, even now, everyone should have that strategy that all the selection has to be done, because the reality is if it's not selected, you're going to be the bad guy every time, son. It doesn't matter what we do. The builder will always come out as the bad person, even if we track it and say, hey, well, I didn't get the paint color, or I didn't get the stain color, or you changed the kerf jam, or, from a standard, it doesn't matter. The thing is, we're always going to be the one to blame because we started too early, and we just, to keep the customer happy, we move forward. And I have one project right now that we took over for a contractor, and it's a premier project, and I know the clients. And I'm like kind of kicking myself in some ways. I mean, it's an amazing project, but I'm like, our SOP's always been, we finished all the design and architecture, and they did, and now it's painful. Now, fortunately, the client had come to us, so they know this. And I sat down and said, look, this is why you brought us in, but we got some work to do here, because or else a year from now, you might not feel the same way. So it's just, right. It's, and to your point, where it's not even an education, but I find as you're more confident, or you've made plenty of mistakes, which I have and all of us have, that I could be more direct with the client and say, no, this is why. Because otherwise, here's pain point ABC that you and I will both have, and you can just look and say, this is what we're going to do, and then they're like, okay, makes sense, let's do it.
Yeah, I agree, and that's something that we're working towards. I think just the drive for the client and the pressure the client's putting on us, they are just really wanting to go, because there's that liability at the end of paying rent if we go an extra month or something like that. And so the procurement's definitely tough. I don't know if anyone can get around that stuff nowadays. I'm trying to get as much of a head start on it as possible. So if you have, clients that are coming to you for commercial construction projects, it's like, hey, let's kind of get started earlier because of all these other issues. And maybe, I don't know how it was in your business. Within ours, it took a little bit of a lag time for customers to catch on that we're having some of these issues. But now they're starting to understand, hey, this is a little bit more prevalent. This is a little bit more normal. I mean, it's not normal if you're looking at like a 20-year time period, but within the last few years, this is something that's definitely, a normal item. I think, there's been enough time where even our customers are going to Home Depot and buying a couple of things, and they're like, maybe noticing that a 2x4 is $12 and not $3 anymore, or drywall's $28 and not $12. So, there's some challenges that we can't change, but we can only work on the things that we can control. So, I mean, I think the procurement and your advice was huge, and that's something that we've tried to implement more in our company. But we were always like, let's go, like get the job, start the job, and let's start building, and then it does cause that heartburn during the project, and then the customer doesn't know why, a paint is so important to pick out. It's like, well, maybe it's something that's like low voltage, your data system. And it's like, well, we already drywalled and framed, and now we want to put TV outlets and stuff over here, speakers here. It's like a little bit of challenging to step back. And it costs a lot of money. Things are expensive right now to redo. And so we don't want to do that. So planning's key. So
it's interesting. So now taking that planning to one step further, something that we're doing now is to be transparent. So I think most of us, right, you have these like kind of mental clicks, right, in the business that, okay, I need to do this and this is going to help. So I knew, having gone through it, that, okay, we need to have all selections done, then we can start. But then we still have the issue where it's like, we get the permit. Okay, we have our design book, we have our plan. Okay, start tomorrow. Let's get out. Let's ground break. Let's get one out there. And I found that even then it's complex because, especially at the level we're doing, if it's a big hillside or some other projects, I mean, the logistics with all the like pool plan meeting and contracts, like my controller and like my team behind the scenes are like, Brad, we have no time to like get the banking finalized, to get the contracts, get deposits, like get these guys. And so we're still creating this. So now it's like, and it was so refreshing. And this was just like a month and a half ago, to be transparent. I was sitting down with the client and they're all, Brad, we're going to have the permit tomorrow. Can we start? And I said, look, we'll start in 6 weeks. And it was painful for me to do that because, I mean, technically we have everything finalized, but it's like, 6 weeks now gives me time to get everyone scheduled, get the banking, get deposits, get it laid out. So my team has a little breathing room and runway. But the reality is, if I were to start today, I'd probably eat up those 6 weeks just in inefficiencies anyway. So if I wait 6 weeks, well, now the client saves a little bit because the bank loan isn't going live. And then I don't have costs on the job. So it's not costing my overhead just yet. So, it's just all those things. We have to understand the business aspect, and then we can just guide, the process better.
Isn't it so interesting? We use a term, head trash. You have head trash around like wanting to, like not wanting to say something like that. Like you were saying, like all the way up to like a month and a half ago, you were concerned about like waiting 6 weeks or what the customer might think, or wanting to put that out there in the world, and, having that conversation. And maybe it's a difficult conversation, but in reality, it's like, if you practice the conversation and you get better at it, like when I said $100 million the first time, I was like, $100 million, like, I was kind of embarrassed to say it, but now, like, we'll embroider it on our shirts, and
nice. You got the 100. That's awesome.
Yeah, I got the 100. But my point is like, it's interesting that as entrepreneurs and even as leaders, we have head trash about all sorts of stuff, and it takes work and experience and those conversations and role plays to get through that, where it's going to be common. And in a year from now, like, that conversation will be super easy. You'll actually probably vanguard it earlier on in the project, through the sales process and stuff, to set it up so it's even an easier conversation. And I explain that because I want, if there's contractors listening or other business owners that are, that have that apprehension about educating their clients and discussing why it would be better to do some of the things that you want to do, is everyone's having those things. We all have sort of that head trash around wanting to, like, start doing that and putting some stuff like that in place sometimes.
Well, here's what I love about that, Sunny. And as you're speaking and sharing that, the counsel that you're giving is, so many of us struggle with vetting clients, right? And we haven't perfected it. I feel we're a lot better today than in the past. But what I found is that when a client's coming in, And that client, as you're vetting the client here, you're going through the process, the pre-construction process, the PSA or, service agreement. If you're directing to them, here's how we do it. Here's the right channel. We bring a designer, we bring an architect, this is the time frame. We get these selections done. This is when we price it. We price it one time at this point because it's going to give you the best value in pricing and not create more work for everybody. And anyways, as you go through this and the client's okay, I get it, Sunny. You're educating me. I understand it. You're confident. There's a reason you're successful in your business. Most clients, like if they're at that point already, they're going to be great to work with because they trust you and it's a relationship. And the ones that are just like, I don't care, Sunny. I've built, this before. Like, you need to get it done. Get guys out there. Like, you already know, like, this is going to be a horrible experience. And so it's another way to vet your client is that by education through the process. And as we understand the process ourselves and now they get it, it just becomes a lot more collaborative environment.
Well, and if a customer will go through that process, so like you're describing the qualification process, right? So if you're vanguarding these things, talking about them up front and working through that process up front, then that they're going to be better to work with later, right? You're making sure that person is you'll pull out all the red flags if they're really pushy about certain stuff or they're not willing to do these items. But what's nice about having a process is, and hopefully, customers that are out there and are working with contractors who do have processes, they should understand that actually benefits them, because for so long contractors didn't have any processes or procedures, right. And the clients had to take that into their responsibility. That's why clients still think that they have to go get 5 bids, and and they have these weird conceptions about, the process, and it makes it harder for contractors to actually do a good job for them because we don't have the ability to do negotiation and scope development and work through all these issues when it's just, hey, how much is, this going to cost? And that's all they want. Or can you just come out to my house and look at it? Can you just come out to my property and give me a price? It's like, well, no, it's like we have a process and we've developed and this benefits you, right? And so, for one, contractors, if you can put some sort of process in place, like work through your process, and sometimes you're going to have clients that won't, but that opens you up so that you can have clients and you can do a better job for the ones that you do have. And then on the opposite end, if you're a client listening to this, like if you're working with a contractor that has, as much set up as like Brad, like you're light years ahead of other contractors that aren't, and you're going to have a much smoother process and, working through everything. And, headaches are expensive.
Yeah, they are.
And so is time, right? So time and headaches are expensive. If you can plan and procure and implement and execute at a higher level because you got everything in place, I think it's huge. So
what are you doing, if you don't mind me asking, system wise now, like without going all the little specifics, is there a certain type of software, training? How are you training your team? What does that look like for you, at Pinhero?
So we've been pretty progressive when it comes to like software. So we use Procore as one of our main, systems. We started out with like Builder Trend, but it wasn't really suited towards commercial construction. We utilize the tools. We try to get all of our team trained on that. We actually do, like, superintendents for us are our main employees, right? When I say main employees, like that's the position group we have the most of. And so we spent a lot of time on training them. And so we make sure they have all their certs and that sort of stuff. One of the things I picked up from someone a couple years ago was doing quick videos. And so, and then I actually I did a training video within the contractor fight the other day, and I was talking about, how Albert Einstein's, his witticism was, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, right? And so much in our business, we can do things over and over and we still keep, having the same issues, wrong thing was ordered because we didn't do the submittals right, or we, started the job too early and we had the same experience of not being ready. And so, I'm trying not to duplicate these issues that we have, and I want to better them. And so someone someone else coined the term headache journal. So they actually have a list of things that are causing headaches in their business. And if anything happens more than 1 or 2 or 3 times, then that's something that they attack and create a process for. And so I found myself for the last 6 years doing that. And so what I'm trying to do is record, short 2 to 5 minute videos on items and being able to get the information out there. And I'm trying to start collaborating with our own superintendent team. So we created our own communication portal where if someone has something come up, they share it with the team. And so it's not a one-on-one learning experience. It's actually like the whole team is learning that. And so that collective wisdom grows. And so I'm not saying I perfected this by any means. This is just something I'm actively doing. And so I'm kind of like talking through it with you right now that I'm starting to do those videos, putting them into OneDrive, which is, you can use Google or whatever. It's just the videos and we name them what they are. And my goal is like, if a super's having an issue, it's like, okay, well, did you check the training portal or the best practice portal? And, this even goes into like how to build things. Like if someone doesn't know how to build things, this goes back earlier in our conversation where we're bringing in people from outside the industry. So if you can have construction training videos of like how something works or what the process is for concrete, or like we just started doing ground ups just a few years ago. Like I was strictly TIs. And so there was this huge head trash around doing ground up projects because I didn't know anything about doing grading, like all the stuff you're doing in Arizona where you're blowing up rocks and like tearing down hillsides and stuff. It's nuts. But now we know that. But if just me and that one super were doing that and I didn't record the videos and talk about it, then how are my other superintendents going to do it? I'd have to go help them again the same way I helped this superintendent learn that. And so that's just something quick that almost any business owner could be. You could be running a accounting office or a sandwich shop or mortgage guy or whoever, and you can just do training videos, and it's just easy. It's like opening your phone up and just recording a quick. You'd be surprised on how fast 1 or 2 minute video is. And the first couple you might be intimidated by looking at yourself in the camera, and that was part of like what Clubhouse was. When I first started doing Clubhouse calls, I was scared to death, but after a little bit of doing them, I was running calls with hundreds of people on them,
Yeah. And
same thing with the videos, I guess.
So this is, truth be told, what 145th guest or something. I've never heard anyone speak about doing some sort of training portal with videos. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard that anywhere. It's amazing. I mean,
save some 1 minute videos on stuff or 2 minute videos or whatever. Like so I just signed up for Loom.
Loom's amazing. Okay. I have clients who use it. Like, it's awesome. Okay.
So I'm using Loom for a couple different reasons. One is to like review proposals and send them out to people and talk about the proposal. Yeah. But I'm also I'm starting to put together like a Google slide and I'll just talk through it. And so like if I'm going to teach something, so I used to just talk into my cell phone. I used to just open my cell phone, grab it, do a quick 2 minute video and I would save it or I'd share it with everyone. So we're trying to increase the collective wisdom. And so it doesn't have to be complicated, just kind of create a database. Otherwise we're just reteaching over and over and over again, I guess. It's like I'm just trying to duplicate and multiply what we've done in the past.
Well, as you mentioned, the only way to expand, I mean, you have to refine that process. You have to have scalability. You have to have processes. You have to have protocol. Because, if you're just trying to educate yourself and every person, you're never going to get to where you want to be. Going back to the videos, though, I mean, do you recommend, is this a journal of, hey, here's mistakes we made or oversights we made that cost the company money we need to fix? Is it, here's the step-by-step process? I mean, is there a rhyme or reason, or how are you organizing just, where these videos go so in the future people can actually find them if they're looking for it?
Well, so like I use a process called lessons learned after we're done with projects. And what I was finding is if we did the lessons learned at the end of the job, it was hard to get everyone together. It was hard to remember all of the things that we had an issue with. And so I'm trying to attack things when things happen. Like when it's an issue, if it's came up before and it continues to be an issue, then, like I said a couple minutes ago, I got the name from someone else called Headache Journal. And it's just literally a list or on your notepad, or maybe you do a notes on your phone and just start typing things in and then create some videos on that and then save them to your file, your SharePoints. We have an intranet, so we use SharePoint and we just have one that everyone's connected to. as a business, that's fairly normal. I think even Google Drive can do the same sort of stuff. And we just title it, whatever. Like my team ordered like 5 sets of doors for one project. Okay. And I don't know why. I don't know why it happened, but that was a topic that then I got on and did a video real quick on, and I'm going to redo it with Loom. So now I can actually have a visual of like, door swings and stuff like that. We were having an issue because it was the threshold size and the type of door frame didn't work with the stud and the stucco and then drywall inside. And it was just like, I just had to like sort of coach on how to figure out rough opening sizes. What does the throat size mean? Just a couple things like that so that they can pay attention to it, or they can, like, if they're ordering doors, they can pull that video up, watch 2 minutes real quick. Yeah, these are like not general stuff. Like, this is things that like you learn from being a contractor. I'm just trying to, share and spread the knowledge that happens in the field. And so once I do it enough, I'm going to try to get some of my team to do it as well. If they're on a job, I want them to quickly record a video and be like, hey, we just ran into it now. They're starting to require this inside our spaces. Whenever you're doing your main sewer line, do a sand bed now. It's came up like on 3 project. It's like, hey guys, now when we're doing our underground plumbing, we're just going to plan on doing, we're just going to do a sand bed for everything. Where a lot of our jobs were not a big deal to do that.
Right.
And that might be a normal process in most jobs, but we just put native soil back normally. But now it's like, okay, well, we're doing sand beds for these types of installations on these types of projects because it's came up like in 2 or 3 jurisdictions, So those are just sort of best practice videos. We call them best practice videos whenever we talk about that sort of stuff. But I've done some videos on how to get into Procore, how to create a daily log, how to create, how to use some of the stuff, the purpose of, emails and quieting your email inbox and, things like that.
So you mentioned also earlier, now you have the capability to do this, but past you were kind of all over Southern California, every state you're licensed in. What does that look like now? Are you focused primarily still in California? Have you expanded the business? Do you have plans to?
It was easier to do it when I was traveling. So when I was moving around and traveling and going to those other projects, it was a little bit easier to do it than it is now. We have licenses. I have an inactive license in Arizona and a couple other places.
But there's reciprocity in a bunch of those anyways, right?
Yeah, it's pretty simple to get set up, but I do have licenses up and down the West Coast. So a lot of our clients are still multi-unit projects, and so that's the type I like. Instead of doing one-off custom projects, which we have been doing a few of those recently, but the clients are still developers where they have multiple projects, so it's still like a multiple project type of client. And that's kind of what I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of selling a client once and then earning the right just to keep building projects for them. And so a lot of our customers, like we just did Spenga fitness facility up in Los Gatos. The first one was in Pasadena. Now we're in the Woodland Hills. And, those are smaller commercial projects, but you kind of get in a rhythm. You kind of get used to doing them. At least on the commercial side, that you kind of have a little bit of that's kind of nice to be able to get into if you're repeating, customers and project types and doing some franchise work and multi-unit concepts. So no, we're trying to stay closer to LA. As I've got older, I also understand the value of my own time and, even driving to LA, it's like, okay, do we want to do any more work in LA from where we are now? Because the traffic, it's 3 hours to get home last night. Oh. And so it'll probably be something where I'm going to be working on some business development. That business development will be sort of like 60 minutes around our office, and then everything else will be like as it comes in. But I'll eventually have to have a couple offices here in Southern California, just because I want quality of life for my employees, and travel and driving to the job site. And what's cool about construction is the guys are just used to it. They're like, go where the work is, right? Like that's the model for so long. But I'm trying to make sure that any quality of life things that I get, my employees are also receiving quality of life upgrades. It's like, okay, trying to get more work locally so that they don't have those long commutes. They get to get home to their wife and kids a little bit better. So, I have a responsibility to myself to do these things. And I also want to coach and make sure that the employees are experiencing the same sort of stuff.
So business development, you mentioned that, from that aspect, especially being the GC, it's not like, for subcontractors, they go to GC, they get work. I mean, how are you finding your job leads, lead generation? How's the company expanded that role?
Honestly, a lot of it is referral work. That's helped us get to where we are now. A lot of the business development is done through influencers. And so I use the word influencers like anyone who has the same type of clientele I have. So that's other business owners that have B2B type businesses. Let's call them commercial real estate agents. That's architects. That's interior designers. It's, for us, if we're doing multi-unit type projects, we're going to reach out to the corporate office, and then they're going to refer us potentially if we can do a good job. And the business development side is outreach, right? And so, property developers, project management companies, CM companies, there's a lot of people who have the same clientele we have. Kitchen equipment companies. So if there's a restaurant, kitchen equipment company, they're going to, we want to build relationships with those. So I've been careful not to be like the full design build. I like the concept because it keeps our pipeline bigger. We know that there's projects out there because we just started design and we kind of playing team captain with the architect and stuff. But I still refer a lot of work to architects, engineers, and I try to find the right fit. Maybe it's, area that they are in or the type of work that they do. And, maybe one architect's, more an office type person. So we'll feed them a couple leads and we get a couple leads back. And it's the influencer network. It's being out there. I've never been a big fan of like Chamber of Commerce and,
right,
those types of events because it's just like, I don't know, I get more security and, people trying to sell me security and telephone services or something, versus, real sort of business development, service out there. So it's picking up the phone, calling. It's giving other people opportunities, and it just compounds over time. And so, that would be the best place to start.
So, I mean, Sunny, it's amazing. I feel like I've been speaking to you for like 7 minutes, and I think we're at like 57. It's crazy. And so we're gonna bring you on for round two because I have about 47 questions for you still, along that 7 number. But, what do you do for fun? I know you post some videos out there. I've seen you working out, at 75 hard, and you're super active. So, how does life look outside of Pinhero Construction and, the growth you've had?
It's become more and more important for me, right? And so that's part of one. That's me playing the long game. Like I mentioned with designing my companies, I'm trying to make decisions that allow me to have the lifestyle I want. And that also includes looking out for like, my employees too. If I'm not working weekends, I can't expect them to, and that's sort of the thought process there. But, one thing I sacrificed is, and I don't have any vices, I don't chew or drink, or I don't do it, there's nothing that I do. I don't gamble, and so, it's eating for me. It's
hey, food's good. We all love food. So,
dude, well, that's the problem. It's mandatory, right? Yeah. It's mandatory, but I like it more than mandatory. And so, that's one area of my life that I am not a person that can give any advice on for fitness and stuff. But yeah, dude, I'm doing 75 hard. I love it. Anyone who wants to look into it, it's cool. I've lost 25 pounds so far in doing 2 rounds of it. I didn't finish the first round. The point of 75 hard is it was designed by Andy Frisella. He's the owner of First Form. He's amazing. He has a great podcast also. I don't know if you've listened to it. He's not for everyone for sure. So you have to have a certain type of mentality to listen to it, but he created this program. It's all about mental toughness. And it's all about saying, okay, I'm going to do these 5 things every single day, no matter what. And that's something that drove me to the program, and I wanted to get more disciplined in what I do, and I want to help, get better in the other areas of my life. And so I work out twice a day right now. I've been doing it for 34 days straight. I did a lot. I did it for 111 days last year. Obviously being an entrepreneur or business owner, it's kind of hard to fit 2 workouts in a day, but yeah, so I work out, for fun though. Like my goal is to go out of town once a month. I haven't done it yet, but I'm working on that. My last fun trip was over where you're at, Lake Powell.
I love it.
So we went to Lake Powell. We brought the razors out.
That's awesome.
We went up and 4-bite on the backside of Horseshoe Bend, on the Grand Canyon up there. Went out on the boat. I don't know. I guess I feel so connected when I'm in business with my phone and Instagram and all that sort of stuff that I want to get out of town. I want to disconnect. And it's so rejuvenating just being out on the lake and not having any phone service, or being up in the mountains and, having a fire and just letting the kids play. And like, that's huge. So, nowadays it's so hard to disconnect.
It's hard, but it just shows the success you've had. I mean, for you to be able to sit here and say, hey, I have the opportunity where I can go ride the razors and be off the grid and not be by my phone. I mean, to me, that's huge success. Not just the opportunity to do that, but it's, you can leave a business behind and you have people that you trust, that are empowered, that have, just the mental fortitude and understand your culture, what you're bringing, that you can leave it behind, because that's pretty rare as a business owner.
Well, and that's the result of playing long game. Like I knew that I wanted someone doing my books. I know I wanted someone doing my coordination. I know I wanted someone to do my PM work. I know I wanted someone to do sales. And so that, the success of the company is not about me anymore. The success of my company is solely about my employees and how well I lead them. And so it's, those things in life, being able to go take your kid to horse riding lessons on a Thursday afternoon and, just stuff like that is like, it's invaluable. And so if you build your company or build your business or you build your lifestyle in a way that you are planning for doing those things, then you're going to get there. If you keep pushing them off and you're just in the rat race or the hamster wheel, you're just going to keep doing that. And so I was just trying to make, and I might be a little bit special when it comes to this, because I failed so bad on my first business that my second time was like redemption. Like, okay, everything I do this time is going to be like long-term, sustainable, scalable. And so I might be going a little bit overkill, but that's really how I approached it, is like, okay, well, if I want to be a $100 million business, what does that look like? If I want to have these things in my life, if I want to go on vacation once a month, what do I have to be able to design my business around? Who do I need to be able to handle stuff? And like all of those things come into play. So strategically, that's the decision I made. And I have to stick to those. Anything that's outside of those decisions, if I go buy a sports car today, that's not part of my plan. Like spending that money on a car is not part of my plan. Part of my plan is having a paid off house and a second house in the desert or the mountains, and being able to go out of town regularly and be 100 pounds lighter than I am. So like those are the things that I have to focus on,
I love it. Well, for everyone listening, you can see why I connected with Sunny all the time on Clubhouse. Like anytime you're hosting, or like I just had to get on, you have a wealth of information, amazing personality, and you're so good at communicating that. So with that said, Sunny, our listeners need to follow this amazing journey. That 100 that's on your sleeve, getting 100 million, where can they find you?
So you can just find me at, Sunny Pinhero on Instagram or Facebook. Our company is Pinhero Construction. So just Pinhero.com. And
there's an H on there, Pinhero.
Yeah, Pinhero.
Yeah, Pinhero.
But yeah, Pinhero.
Yeah. Well, you've been amazing, Sunny. I can't thank you enough. We'll reconnect for sure, and appreciate making time.
Dude, it's awesome being on here. I've looked up to you a long time. Like the projects you guys are doing are fantastic. And so, yeah, we need to do it more often for sure.
Feelings mutual. Thanks, Sunny.
Thanks, brother.
Well, dude.